High in the cloud forests of northern Peru, there is a wall that should not exist. It curves up out of the mist, taller than a six-story building, built from millions of limestone blocks dragged to the top of a mountain ridge nearly 2 miles above the sea. A person standing at its base barely reaches the height of a single course of stone. It is older than Machu Picchu. It holds more stone than an Egyptian pyramid. And for almost 300 years, the outside world forgot it was even there. We still don't fully agree on what it was. We barely understand the people who built it. And the more archaeologists dig, the more this place quietly rewrites what we thought we knew about civilization in the Americas. This is Kuelap, and the mystery starts with a simple, impossible question. How did anyone build this here at all? Kuelap sits on a narrow limestone ridge in Peru's Amazonas region, roughly 3,000 meters up, where the Andes break apart into mist and jungle. This is not easy ground. On either side, the mountain falls away into deep ravines. The air is thin. The slopes are draped in cloud forest, orchids, moss, tangled trees. And on top of all of it, someone built a city of stone. The outer walls run about 600 meters long and rise, in places, close to 20 meters high, around 60 feet of carved limestone, laid block on block and sealed with clay. By some estimates, the whole complex contains more than 3 times the volume of stone used in the Great Pyramid of Giza. It is widely considered the largest ancient stone structure in all of South America. Every block had to be cut, hauled up a mountain, and lifted into place by hand. No wheels, no iron tools, no written records left behind to tell us how. Just the wall, waiting in the clouds. To understand the wall, you have to meet the people who raised it, and that's where the mystery deepens. They were the Chachapoya. The Spanish later called them the warriors of the clouds, because they lived in the high, fog-wrapped forests where few others dared to settle. They were not the Inca. They came centuries before them. The Chachapoya flourished roughly between 900 and 1100 AD, with roots reaching back to the 6th century, a network of fiercely independent communities spread across the cloud forests, each led by its own local chief. They built circular houses, not the rectangular stone of the Inca. They buried their dead high on cliff faces and inside their own walls. They decorated their buildings with geometric symbols we still can't fully read. And then, after 1,000 years, they were gone, absorbed, scattered, and nearly erased from history. So who exactly were they? Where did they come from? Even today, the answer is incomplete, but the walls they left behind hint at a people preparing for something. Look closely at Kuelap, and it reads like a fortress designed by people expecting an attack. The entire settlement is sealed behind those towering walls. And to get inside, there are only 3 entrances, narrow, steep passageways that funnel inward, squeezing until only a single person can pass at a time. Imagine charging that. An army would be forced into a thin line, channeled straight into a killing point, while defenders waited above. Inside one of the towers, archaeologists found a stash of more than 2,000 sling stones, ammunition, ready and waiting. Whoever lived here was prepared to fight. The likeliest threat? Other expanding cultures pushing into Chachapoya territory, like the powerful Wari to the south. For a long time, this was the whole story. A mountaintop stronghold, a wall built out of fear. Clean, simple, convincing. And then the excavations started turning up something that didn't fit a fortress at all. Here's the problem with calling Kuelap a fortress. People weren't just defending it. They were being buried inside it, beneath the structures and within the walls themselves. Archaeologists have uncovered dozens of human remains in one section of the site, more than 80 bodies. This wasn't only a barracks. It was sacred ground. At the heart of the complex stands a strange inverted cone of stone, wider at the top than the bottom, that may have served a ceremonial or even astronomical purpose. Other buildings appear aligned to ritual, not war. So a growing number of archaeologists now argue Kuelap was something more layered than a stronghold, an elite center of power, religion, and the dead, wrapped in walls that announced authority as much as they repelled invaders. The walls weren't only saying keep out. They were saying look at what we can build. Look at who we are. Which raises a haunting thought. What if the most defended structure on the continent was, at its core, a temple? There's a detail most visitors walk straight past, running along the walls of Kuelaps. Buildings are carved patterns, sharp zigzags and rows of perfect diamonds, cut directly into the stone. They're everywhere, and no one is certain what they mean. Some researchers think they mark clans, that a diamond pattern told you which family or lineage lived behind a given wall. Others believe they signaled status or carried spiritual meaning tied to the Chachapoya view of the world. But here's what makes it eerie. This is a civilization that left no writing, no alphabet, no script we can decode. These geometric symbols may be the closest thing they had to a written language, a message carved in stone, meant to be understood at a glance by people who are now gone. We're standing in front of their words, and we can't read a single one. Now here's the part that genuinely unsettles historians. For a structure this massive, the largest stone complex in South America, Kuelap is strangely absent from the record. When the Incas swept through and conquered the region in the late 1400s, their accounts barely register it. When the Spanish arrived decades later and documented temples, cities, and treasures across Peru, Kuelap is hardly mentioned at all. A fortress city you could see from miles away, holding thousands of people, and the great chroniclers of two empires walk right past it in their writings. Then the Chachapoya were conquered, resettled, and devastated by disease. The site emptied out, the cloud forest crept back in, and Kuelap simply vanished from the world's memory. It stayed hidden for centuries. It wasn't until 1843 that a local judge, exploring the highlands, stumbled onto the ruins and realized what was sitting up there in the mist. An entire monumental city, lost not in some distant prehistory, but in plain sight. How does something this enormous get forgotten? This is where Kuelap stops being a curiosity and starts rewriting textbooks. For a long time, the story of the Andes had a simple shape. The Inca were the great builders, the pinnacle of South American civilization, and almost everything impressive was theirs. Kuelap breaks that story. Here is a monumental, highly organized society, moving hundreds of thousands of tons of stone, building a city in the sky, and it rose centuries before the Inca, on the very edge of the Amazon, in cloud forest long assumed too harsh and tangled to support anything on this scale. And the Chachapoya weren't easily swept aside. The mighty Inca Empire struggled to conquer them, reaching this region only late in its expansion. That forces a bigger question. If a civilization this advanced could thrive in the misty borderlands of the Amazon and then be almost entirely forgotten, how many others are still out there, swallowed by the same forest? Kuelap isn't just a ruin. It's evidence that the map of the ancient world is far from finished. So what happened to the people of the clouds? The clues point to a hard, possibly violent ending. Across parts of Kuelap, archaeologists have found thick layers of burnt roofing, entire structures that went up in flames. Some believe the residents themselves torched the site as they abandoned it. Others think Kuelap met a brutal end. Skulls recovered here show signs that have fueled debate for years, possible evidence of trophy taking and the violence of a warrior culture. Though some researchers argue certain marks were medical, not martial. Then came conquest. The Inca absorbed the region and forcibly relocated Chachapoya populations across their empire, scattering them deliberately. Soon after, the Spanish arrived, and with them, waves of disease that gutted what remained. Within a few generations, the cloud warriors were broken, dispersed, and dying out. And the Great Wall? It was left to the only occupants it had remaining, the ancestors buried inside it. Here's what should keep you up at night. We are still not done discovering Kuelap. As recently as 2026, archaeologists working the site uncovered a stone funerary chamber holding 5 people, 4 adults, and an infant, buried with carved offerings, metal objects, and shells carried from a distant ocean. New rooms, new tombs, new pieces of the story are still emerging from the ground. And Kuelap is only one site. The Chachapoya left cliff tombs, painted sarcophagi, and other lost cities scattered across the same cloud forests, many still half swallowed by jungle, some barely studied at all. We found the largest stone monument in South America by accident. In 1843, the forest has been hiding the rest ever since. So the real question isn't just who the Chachapoya were. It's how much of their world is still up there, waiting in the mist for someone to look up at the right ridge. An entire civilization vanished into the clouds once before. What if it's still hiding? Subscribe to Earth Mysteries before the next discovery surfaces.